What happens when the principles that preserve freedom are no longer being taught? Why are so many young Americans graduating without an understanding of true liberty?
They're not inculcating just the tremendous blessings we have of liberty and what we need to preserve it. Just like reading the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Mayflower Compact, and so many of those principles that we should be applying. And you need to instill them in the youth. And of course, the school is the best vehicle for it.
Welcome to Unmasking Government Schools with Sheri Few, USPIE's weekly podcast that empowers parents to reclaim their children's education from government bureaucrats and social engineers, equipping you with the tools and resources needed to join the cause.
Hi everyone, welcome to Unmasking Government Schools with Sheri Few. I'm your host, Sheri Few. As a substitute teacher, Ron Higgins has a unique perspective on this topic. So Ron, many people describe what's happening in education as a simple decline, but you've used the word subversion. What do you mean by that?
They know how to teach, and they know what to teach, they're just not doing it. My issues were, what are they teaching? What aren't they teaching? And how are they teaching? We should be teaching communication, computation, and civics. They call this social emotional learning. What we should be teaching is civics and ethics, how we should behave in a free society where we have the free enterprise and the tremendous benefits of that. They say there's no king, and we don't want a king. Well, the motto of the American Revolution was no king but Jesus. Well, in the free enterprise system, the customer is king as well. And I guess it always is that way, except in a socialist system, the bureaucrat is the king, not the customer. The customer is more or less forgotten, and our prosperity will just absolutely collapse. But that's our material prosperity. Before that happens, we lose some of the intangible liberties that we have, the liberty of association and such. So we're not teaching that.
So let's go back to this idea of subversion before we get into any more examples of what you've observed as a substitute teacher. And just for the audience sake too, Ron is a very educated man. He had a very vibrant career as an engineer and just took an interest, according to my perspective, in education, became a certified teacher, and now substitutes teach just because he wants to be in the classroom. And so let's get back to this idea of subversion, and how you use that to describe what's happening in education today. So do you believe this? Because you said they know what to teach, and you don't know why they're not. Do you think it's intentional?
Well, I would certainly, it would be. Of course, they're just, doing what they've been taught in the schools of education. I would refer people to this website, New Order of the Barbarians, where one of the elitist insiders, former medical director of Planned Parenthood, and he was a former professor of medicine at the University of Pittsburgh Medical School. He was one of the insiders, and he gave a lecture in 1969 about what the elite had planned for our society and the various social pathologies that we're seeing today have been deliberately implemented into our society. The sexual anarchy, they went to the violence, the abortion, the drugs. They had planned doing that to undermine our social fabric, to take us down. And the best way to do that, of course, is through the media and through education. There's so many kids are there in our public schools. That would be an excellent vehicle. The tyrants thought that. I could give you some quotes from, in fact, I will right now, from some no-good-nicks. Now, just because I quote a no-good-nick doesn't mean I agree with them. Hitler wanted to, of course, take over the kids. Lenin did as well. Give me 8 years and they'll be a Bolshevik forever. Well,
Yeah, and Mao,
that's right.
Mao did the same thing.
Right. They're not inculcating just the tremendous blessings we have of liberty and what we need to preserve it. And if you go back to the basis documents, just like reading the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Mayflower Compact, is so many of those principles that we should be applying in our schools. And you need to instill them in the youth. And of course, the school is the best vehicle for it.
Let's go ahead now, Ron, and talk some more about some of your examples of being in the classroom.
I've gotten in trouble when I shouldn't have gotten in trouble. I was discharged from one school. The kid asked me about marriage. He asked me during the classroom. Well, I just said it's between a man and a woman. That's the way God made it. And I was confronted by the vice principal of the middle school. And he said, I understand you told the children that marriage is between a man and a woman. I said, yes, sir, I did. And he said, we've got children struggling with that issue. I said, I wouldn't doubt that. I bet they're struggling with gang membership and drug use. Am I supposed to affirm that too? He didn't like that answer. His face turned as red as your coffee cup there. That was the end of my academic career at that institution.
Well, I was reading an article by Alex Newman recently, and he was writing from a spiritual perspective, which I think you'd appreciate. And he said that it's a spiritual battle. You and I both know that. And he said it's been the same battle since the beginning, and it will continue on. And so, all the institutions that God created, starting with the family, of course, they want to destroy the family. God created nations, so He wants, the enemy wants a one world order and destroy nations. It's very insightful, but we see this playing out in the government schools today. And so there's so many things that we're seeing that are counter biblical, and it ultimately is a spiritual battle. And I'm sure you would agree with that.
That's by the way, the school shouldn't be taking over the job of the church as far as theology is concerned. But when it comes to ethics, that's where ethical principles have to be inculcated into our youth. Honesty, hard work, and such, cooperation with other people. I tell them the two biggest indicators for success in life: your work ethic and how well you get along with other people. And there's another word for options. If you do well at school, you will have options, because you can show that you can learn, you can absorb material, you can get along with other people, you can finish what you start. And there's another word for option. It's called freedom. So you can be free, and that gives you a ticket to go places. By the way, I substitute teach right now, mostly in Pasco. Most of the kids are Hispanic. I could even say the Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish, but they will make outstanding citizens if we teach them right. I had a kid from Somalia. We went through the Constitution line by line, and we didn't finish, so he came back after school for an hour because he wanted to learn it.
That's great.
We have liberty here. It is almost unique in human history, but we have to keep the principles, or we'll lose it. And our first liberty, of course, is freedom of religion. I was going through the history, there are a number of different religious organizations sent missionaries to the Indians, and Whitman were one, the Spaldings, DeSmet, there's some others, And I was just explaining to the middle school class these different religious organizations, because that in the state of Washington, that was very instrumental in the founding of our state. And one of the kids said, "What you say offends me." I said, "I didn't tell you to believe anything." I said, "This is just history, what happened." I said, "Our First Amendment is, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." Our first freedom is freedom of religion. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. They can't make you pray, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. They can't make you not pray. It's none of the government's business. And everybody agreed. That's the way it ought to be. The government stays out of it. Our eternal destiny is kind of in our own hands. Do we accept the Lord or not? Right? Smoking or not.
Yes.
And it's your choice. In fact, the Bible gives that, Deuteronomy 30, Joshua 24, and you go all the way, Revelation chapter 22, verse 17. Whosoever will. So we have freedom. That's Christian principle. It's a biblical principle. In fact, you don't want somebody in your church who doesn't believe what you believe. It just doesn't make sense.
So I want to talk about another Bible passage that you referenced when we were discussing this idea of subversion. But we need to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about this. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by U.S. parents involved in education. USPIE's mission is to empower parents and local communities to break free from federal and national influences, thereby reclaiming parental authority over their children's education. For more insights from U.S. parents involved in education, connect with us at USPIE on X and Facebook. To join the movement, visit uspie.org.
Welcome back to Unmasking Government Schools with Sheri Few. With me today is Ron Higgins, retired engineer, certified teacher, substitute teacher, radio show host, and USPIE Washington State chapter president. Ron, you've referenced a Bible passage from Judges 2:10 through 12. So what do those verses say, and why are they so relevant to what's happening today in America's schools?
Well, the children of Israel had just come out of the promised land, and Moses had died. He couldn't go across the Jordan into the promised land to take it over. And then Joshua led them. And then Joshua died, and his peers died away as well. So they lost all that generation. So we're going to pick that up. The old guys are gone. The young Turks have taken over. Judges chapter 2, verse 10. And also all that generation were gathered unto their fathers, and there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and served Balaam, and they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods of the people that were round about them, and bowed themselves unto them, and provoked the Lord to anger. So they lost their uniqueness. Their uniqueness was not because they're so great. In fact, you can read in Deuteronomy, Moses talked about that. God didn't choose you because you're so great. You're stiff-necked. In other words, you're arrogant and rebellious. But he gave you the oracles of God. If you follow these, you'll be the envy of every other country. Of course, they didn't for very long, and things fell apart. And that's what happened. And God, well, there's natural consequences, right?
Right.
And that's what happened. And it was up and down. By the way, prosperity will cause things like that. You start just sitting back and just drifting, and you forget what got you there. Mm. And how do we inculcate that to our kids? We have to do that and show them the foundational principles. They're right there. Why do we have a government? Where'd that come from? Well, you read Romans 13, it talks about that, what the government's supposed to do. It's a terror to those who do evil. Not supposed to, it's not government, it's government. And I think it's in Second Peter that it talks about what the governor's supposed to do. He's supposed to enforce the law and against evildoers. That's what government does, protects us. Well, who's going to look after the poor? We're supposed to do that. First, you get a job, and the second thing, you take care of your family. You're worse than an infidel if you don't. And then you take care of people in the church and those less fortunate. That's why you work, so you have something to give to those less fortunate. That's the job of the church to do that. See, government is monopolistic and coercive. Freedom is competitive and voluntary. And you do need a government, but that's why you want it small and just focused on certain things. And then we're supposed to do the rest. That doesn't mean you don't do anything. You've got to be doing some of that stuff, or our society will fall apart.
That was a great explanation of that passage and, the background behind it and how it relates to what we see happening in American schools today. So, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with Alex Newman's article, that it is a problem of evil versus good that's been going on since time memoriam. So it's no wonder that we're facing that today, but there is a preventative, and that's what's missing is teaching our children the things that we value, the things of God, the things that God created, all of the institutions that are valuable to Him. So that leads to another question I have for you. Along the same lines, where does the restoration begin? Meaning, what practical steps would you encourage those raising the next generation to take?
Focus on the things that are important: communication, computation, and civics. Go back to the, let's say, the basis documents. This is a copy of the United States Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. You can buy them in bulk for $1. There's Founder's Wisdom. You can buy this in bulk for $1. It's got George Washington's farewell address. In fact, I've used that myself in many classes about very important source of strength and security, cherish public credit. One method of preserving it is use it as sparingly as possible, avoiding occasions of expense by cultivating peace, but remembering also that the timely disbursements to prepare for danger frequently prevent much greater disbursements to repel it. In other words, get the preventive maintenance done in your car, go visit the dentist, do the preventive. Yeah, it costs up some other front, pay me now or pay me later. That's what he's saying here. Be prepared. Avoiding likewise the accumulation of debt. I tell them, in your wallet, you have a hand grenade called a credit card, can get you in big trouble. So be very, very careful about that. You certainly don't want debt collectors coming after you. Avoiding likewise accumulation debt, not only by shunning occasional expense, but by vigorous exertions in time of peace to discharge the debts which unavoidable wars have occasioned, not ungenerously throwing upon posterity the burdens which we ourselves ought to bear. So I say, okay, kids, what is posterity? Well, post means after. The people who come after it. Your grandkids. You don't even know who they are, but they're coming along, hopefully.
So you were mentioning posterity, and isn't that a part of the name of your radio show that you do?
Yeah, Liberty and Posterity. My radio show is Liberty and Posterity. This is out of the preamble of the U.S. Constitution. Preserves the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So I thought, liberty and posterity.
Okay, so we need to take another short break. And when we come back, Ron, I'd like to ask you 2 questions that we ask all our guests before closing the show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. U.S. Parents Involved in Education has observed the intense pressure and real danger facing those who speak out against transgender ideology. Many parents remain silent due to fear of retaliation. But behind the scenes, the transgender industry generates massive profits. Grandview Research estimates that the U.S. sex reassignment surgery market was $2.1 billion in 2022 and will exceed $44 billion by 2030. This huge financial incentive helps explain why ideology and money combine to protect harmful practices. USPIE believes all parents must overcome fear and speak out to protect children and the nation from this damaging industry. For more information and to join our movement, visit uspie.org and connect with us at USPIE on Facebook and X. Welcome back to Unmasking Government Schools with Sheri Few. I'm your host, Sheri Few, and with me today has been Ron Higgins, USPIE Washington State Chapter President and Substitute Teacher. So Ron, we close our show with two questions. What concerns you most about what's happening in education today, and what gives you hope?
What are they learning? What aren't they learning? Are they going to be prepared to take over? Because it's going to happen sooner than they would think. That concerns me. Separating ethics from government. They say separate the church and state. No, they're separating ethics from government is what they're really doing. Well, that's not going to work. We need an honest government, and I don't care who's there in what government positions. You do the crime, you do the time. This is a republic, a nation of laws, not of a party or personalities. We, the people, if we're turning away from God, we're going to get smacked. That's just the way it is. So it's kind of up to the individuals. We have to keep our families together. We need to keep our liberty, look out for other people's liberty as well. And I think we could certainly do okay.
Well, I think you're very eloquent, Ron, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Thanks for joining me and sharing your knowledge. You have a wealth of knowledge, and I always enjoy listening to your stories from inside the classroom, and I pray that you'll keep up that work and keep showing us what's happening on the inside, in addition to touching the lives of children that probably otherwise would not hear the great truths that you're sharing with them. So I really appreciate you and all that you do to protect children and our country's freedom. So thanks again for being on the show.
U.S. Parents Involved in Education is a nonprofit coalition dedicated to restoring local control of education and parental authority. By empowering parents to reclaim responsibility for their children's learning and encouraging states to move away from federal influence, USPIE seeks to create a culture where parents are the primary decision makers in education and schools support families without the burden of federal mandates. If you want to start a state or regional USPIE chapter in your area, please visit uspie.org and complete the brief questionnaire in the chapter section.